It's the start of 2021, it's absolutely freezing outside, and thanks to COVID, we've all been pretty much locked indoors for the better part of a year now. The idea of on-track action is but a distant memory, and so the solution to all of that is sim racing, right? Well, in this video I want to talk you through the pros and cons of sim racing, talk you through a sort of beginner setup that won't cost a complete arm and a leg to get ready, and talk you through a bit about how you can sort of get the most out of your sim racing experience so that when you get back in a real car, you're the fastest you can be. First off, the pros and cons. Now, the pros are pretty obvious. You can race on any track you want, in pretty much any car you want. You can change your setup, things like your suspension, your tyres, pressures, gearing, engines, anything you want, all with a click of a button and basically for free. You can put in 1,000 laps around the Nordschleife and then go do a 24-hour race at Spa, all in the same day, all from the comfort of your office chair. But the cons are mostly dependent on how much money you can spend on it. If you're running a beginner setup, then you get next to no feedback about what the car is actually doing. You don't get any feel for tyre grip or how much G-force you're putting through a corner. You don't get any information about if the car is just about to understeer or oversteer. You have to work all of that out based on visuals and maybe a bit of sound. But if you're willing to spend, well, more than my house is worth, you can buy a full-scale F1 car replica with full motion. But let's pretend that we don't necessarily have £100,000 and enough space in our houses to fit a full-scale F1 car. Of course, just pretending. How can you go about getting started? Well, luckily Logitech sent me over their G923 for me to review on my tech channel, TechTeamGB. If you want to check out the full review of this, I'll leave it in the cards above. But long story short, this is a great entry-level option. It costs around about £300 right now, although you can buy the G29 or G920, which are the sort of last-gen versions, for even less. Now, in terms of driving experience, this is okay. You get reasonable amounts of force feedback through the wheel. Technically, if you're playing a true force game, then you can also get a bit of extra feedback in things like tire grip and bumps in the road, although in my experience with it so far, that specifically hasn't been fantastic. The pedals are basic potentiometer styles, but they offer a lot more feel and a lot more accuracy than my much older Logitech Driving Force GT that's now like 14 years old. Kind of crazy to think. Now with that said, this is a really easy sort of beginner setup. All you have to do is plug it into power, plug the pedals and power it into this, and then plug a single USB cable into your PC and you're ready to go. Now I mentioned a PC there, you will need either a PC or console to be able to play this. I'm going to leave that one up to you, and if you're interested in the PC side of things, I've done plenty of build guides on my tech channel, TechTeamGB, where I cover a number of different sort of price points and how to build the system and what sort of performance you'll get. So if you're interested in building your own system or just checking out different system reviews, head to there too. Otherwise, once you have everything set up, you're ready to go, but you need to pick a game. Some games like Grid, which is the game that Logitech actually sent me to play with this wheel, have more arcadey physics. You don't really get much in the way of grip from the tires as much as just, spinning around a corner. You can't really make the car under or oversteer without being, ludicrous with it. Whereas games like Assetto Corsa, Project Cars 2 isn't bad. There's also R-Factor and iRacing for more serious, racing. Those are a lot better options, are a lot more realistic to the driving experience. If you prefer Rally, Dirt Rally 2.0, and just dirt in general isn't too bad. And there are a number of other rally games that offer pretty reasonable simulation too. Now, since I both have Assetto Corsa, it also has an excellent collection of mods, including tracks and cars, and supports VR as well. We're going to jump into that one and have a bit of a play. When you first get out on track, you might be tempted to go straight into online racing, and you certainly can, but generally speaking it's a good idea to jump into some practice sessions and get used to the tracks, get used to the cars, the physics, all that sort of stuff. In this case, I'm at Spa with the Ferrari SF70H F1 car, certainly something I couldn't do in the real world. Now with that said, because you can race at any track you want in any car you want, you can also find your real life car and race around tracks that you're going to visit. That's a really good way to help learn a track so that when you get to the track day or race event or whatever you're doing, you have a better understanding of how the track's laid out, what rough sort of speeds and forces you can take through a corner. Even if it's not exact, it gives you a really good idea and it gives you a good head start over anyone else who doesn't necessarily have this sort of thing to play around with and learn the tracks at home. When you're out on track, there's quite a lot that you can learn beyond the obvious just learning tracks that you're going to visit in real life. Things about learning the car's physics and the mechanics behind them, things like balancing a car through a corner instead of just full throttling it or braking too late. You can try taking a corner a little slower and trying to apply power through the corner rather than braking late into it. Or try the opposite. If you are very good at braking early, try braking a little bit later and see what effect that has on a car. You can also sort of internalize the theory, if you like, of things like weight transfer, things like loading the front or rear wheels at specific times so that you can get the most grip through corners or so that you don't understeer off. There's a lot that you can try, and the fact that you can just try it over and over again, the fact that you can go around the same corner 100 times in 20 minutes and understand how to take it better, understand the physics of how the cars work, is a really, really nice thing. If you find yourself in a position where you're under or oversteering quite a lot, especially if you're understeering into corners and then you're oversteering out of them, don't worry, that is kind of normal. Because especially with this kind of setup where it's just a wheel with a little bit of force feedback and what are essentially dumb pedals that are just based on potentiometers and springs rather than hydraulics and hydraulic force feedback, what happens there is you don't really have the information that you would normally have in a regular car. You don't necessarily get an intrinsic feel, even in VR, for how fast you're going into corners, which can mean that you take a corner way faster than you actually should, but it's a lot harder to gauge on a 2D screen or even in VR. In terms of oversteering out of corners, then it kind of depends on what pedal setup you have. I've found that I oversteer out of corners a lot less with these pedals because they're a lot more accurate in their position, but I still do, and that's fairly normal. It takes some time getting used to it and takes some time to, like I said, get used to the feeling of having no direct connection between the pedal and how fast you go, in this case in-game. And once you get a hang for the car's physics and the different tracks, you can start racing either bots or online with other people. And the thing is that if you're competing in the right tournaments, there is a path for you to go from sim racing at home to racing real cars, potentially even with sponsorship, with a real team. Of course, that's not necessarily the immediate goal for most people. It's more about sort of having fun, learning a bit and enjoying it, but that is a possibility, and so that's definitely a nice little benefit. So that's a sort of beginner's guide to sim racing, the sort of pros and cons, and a bit about what you can learn and how you can learn it if you fancy. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below about sim racing. Is it something that you do yourself? If you do, then what wheel do you have? I'd be very interested to know. Also, is this something that you'd pick up if you aren't? And also, do you think that it's necessarily as valuable as I perhaps are making it out to be? I'd love to hear your thoughts in those comments down below. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. Feel free to check out that subscribe button for more videos like this on a weekly basis, and check out some more videos on the end cards as well. There's plenty of videos hopefully coming up soon, including reviews of hopefully some actual cars as opposed to, race wheels. But that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you all in the next video.